Would you agree with me that a prime characteristic of following Christ is forgiveness? Would you agree with that? All right. Would you also agree with me that forgiveness can be very, very difficult?
Yes.
Right. Peter must have been thinking the same thing. We know that forgiveness can be very, very difficult when the hurt, the offense has gone really deep. It's maybe messed up our lives somehow in maybe significant ways. Or when it is a repeated thing. It keeps happening over and over and over again. And they say, and it doesn't seem like it's going to end. What good is my forgiveness doing? Or also when there's no apology. It's a little easier if somebody apologizes, but it's kind of hard when it's not. It makes it more difficult. So we don't know what happened, what Peter was talking about, but when he went up to Jesus and says, how many times must I forgive someone who sins against me? And he thought it was going to be really generous, magnanimous. 7 times? As much as 7 times? Basically what Peter was asking is this. What's the number I have to forgive? Because the next number is the number where I get to get back at him. That's when I can begin my vengeance, my payback. So if I have to forgive 7 times, then the 8th time, okay, here we go. That's what he's asking. So, he's also asking, like we heard in that first reading, when is it, what number can I start holding wrath and anger inside of me and just feed it and let it fester? What number can I start doing that? And at what number can I justifiably become a bitter person? Well, who could blame me for what's happened to me? At what number? So he's asking Jesus. So Jesus basically says, you want a number? I'll come up with a number. The number is 77, which symbolically means it's an infinite number of times that you have to forgive. As many times as you have been offended, that's the number of times you need to forgive. And Jesus goes on to give us a parable. And in that parable, he gives us another kind of a number, really. And he says, or you can choose to do this. You need to forgive as many times as you want God to forgive you. So what's your number? Infinite? Yeah. Every time. I want God to forgive me every time. Well, then that's the number that we use in trying to forgive somebody else. It's an infinite number. Having said that, it doesn't make it easy. But Jesus is saying there is no number at which you get to get even, no number at which you get to hold that wrath and anger inside and just hold it in there until it festers up and bursts out, because that's what's going to happen. And there's no number at which you get to be justifiably bitter. Who could blame me? There's no number. So understanding that, it's like, well, how do you get there? Well, what are some motives that would make us to want to forgive? Well, the first one is what Jesus ended with. How many times do you want to be forgiven? In the first reading it says, if you hold wrath and anger, and if you go out seeking vengeance and hateful things against somebody else, how can you expect God to forgive you? So, do I want to be forgiven? Yeah, I do. Then work towards forgiveness. You ever heard me yet say it's easy, did I? Did you? No, it's not easy. But work towards forgiveness because we want to be forgiven. Second thing, work towards forgiveness because we don't want to become hateful, angry people. And that's what happens. We hold that anger and that hate in, and then at the slightest provocation, it just comes out. Maybe you've seen it happen in other people, and maybe they've seen it in you. You're holding this in, it's kind of festering inside, and then something happens, a slight kind of an offense or a perceived offense, and all of a sudden you get the whole shooting match. It just comes right out. It's like, whoa, what's going on there? What's going on there is I've been harboring this for a long time, and now I have an excuse to get it out. And we become hateful, angry, bitter people. To whom do we give the power to make us bitter? There's only one person who's responsible for whether or not I am a bitter person or a happy person. And that one person is me, that one person is you. There's nothing that anybody can do which will necessarily make me bitter. It depends upon how I choose to deal with it, and whether or not I hold it in or work towards forgiveness. And it is work. How do I get there? How do I get my feelings to go there? It's an act of the will. We make a choice, and then we work towards it. I don't want to hold it in. I want to let it go. And the third motivation that I'll mention is that if we hope that there's any possibility towards reconciliation, then we need to forgive. Because if we don't, what's going to happen is that as the relationship continues, this thing which festers within us is just going to come out. Well, yeah, remember the time you did this to me? It's like, well, that was 10 years ago. I thought you forgave me. No, I certainly did not. We can't grow deeper in love, in relationship, in trust if we don't forgive. So if there's any hope of reconciliation and healing of a relationship, it will come through forgiveness. There's much more that can be said about this. Books, many, many books written about it, but I'll leave with two things. One is this, that we are the ones who get to choose to forgive. But it does not mean that anything that was evil that was done to us was okay. Forgiveness does not condone the evil that was done. I forgive because what was done was wrong, sinful, evil. That's why I forgive. I forgive because what was wrong and sinful and evil, I don't want to carry around with me anymore. If you've ever been in a situation where you're hurt deeply, and it's affecting everything, and you walk around with this for a while, I've been there a couple times, sorry to say, and it got to the point where you could forgive. Then you know what kind of freedom comes in it all. It says, I don't condone what happened, but I refuse to carry this around inside me anymore. I'm done with it. I'm done with it. I'm moving on in life. I don't want to be stuck. And in doing that, we get the freedom that we need. It also includes this thing about not condoning, includes this, that we don't have to stick around for further abuse. We get to walk away. If it looks like nothing's changing here, we still need to forgive, but we don't have to sit around and let somebody continue to abuse us. My proof for that is Jesus Christ himself. I'll just bring a couple things. I got a list, but a couple things. Remember the time when he was in the temple? He said something that people didn't like, so they pick up stones to throw at him. What did he do? No, he said he hid behind a pillar and snuck out the other way. And there was another time when they wanted to throw him over, took him out of town, took him to the brow of a hill and were throwing him over. He says, hey, I'm out of here. I'm not sticking around for this. We don't condone it. We don't let it go on. And still we forgive. We don't want to carry it around and make us stuck. That's the first thing. The second thing is this, among others, that how am I expected to forgive something which is so deep? It could be an unrealistic expectation, except if we do it with God's help. Someone once said to err is human, to forgive divine. There's the key. We could pray for it. Prayer might go something like this. Oh God, please help me to learn how to forgive Sven, whoever your Sven is. Help me to forgive. I don't want to carry this around anymore. I need to come to a place where I can let it go. You are the one who is the divine healer. I ask you to heal me, to heal him, and ask you to send me the grace to forgive as you forgive me. And I suggest we probably have to pray that more than once. And we also pray, if it's possible and if we want, for the relationship to be healed, that God might heal us and bring us together with greater trust, mutual forgiveness, and understanding. Although sometimes that's not possible. Pray for it. And we can also pray this, that God open our eyes, first of all, to our own need for forgiveness. Open our eyes, Lord. And also pray then that we can open our eyes, that we might be able to find a way to forgive others and to let it go, so that we might live